Coach, I appreciate you taking time. From what you saw out of the fall, how do you feel about the staff, and what do you see as the strength right now?
Well, I think we got a lot of guys with good stuff. We have a lot of guys that are returners that were, if they weren't in a pivotal role last year, they were trending towards a pivotal role. And, with the complement of the good new group, mostly freshmen, and then, Jarrett and CJ, I think it could be a pretty dynamic group. They can do a lot of things. They have good velocity, which velocity is not everything, but a lot of them, spin good breaking balls, or they have some sort of weapon. So, I think it's got a chance to be a pretty good group. We got some left-handers to complement a lot of right-handers in terms of maybe potential starters or potential high-leverage relief guys. So, I think it's a pretty diverse group that could do some really good things on the mound.
Colin Taylor.
Yes, Skylar, I guess just what kind of development have you seen from a guy like Julian Bosnick, and where do you kind of see him fitting in this year?
He's certainly a guy that, he had a great fall. I don't think it's any question. He's battling for a weekend spot, and he certainly, I think, earned his keep this fall with what he did. He had a jump in terms of velocity. I think a lot of that is just mostly due to the fact that, he's 2 years post his elbow surgery. He hurt his elbow in high school, tried to come here and fight through it a little bit, and that just wasn't going to work. So, you couple that with just the pure confidence he has. It's a real repertoire. It's 4 pitches. Fastball was up to 96. All of that. And I think he's one of our best competitors on the mound. That's one of the things when Coach Current initially brought him to the table to us, in a recruiting meeting, everybody said the kid is hyper competitive. And I think you got to see that through the fall, especially whether it should be this way or not. When we went to that Fall World Series, I thought you saw him turn it up another notch, for those who were at the games. And, I think it was 9 innings in the Fall World Series with 13 punchies and only gave up 1 or 2 hits. So he certainly knows how to dial it when it's real.
Greg Hadley.
Hey, Coach. Coach Kingston was kind of talking about power arms and how that's kind of been, the trend across all of baseball, and how you guys have kind of followed along with that as well. I was just curious, is that a style that you kind of, have always been, in favor of, trying to get the, the biggest arms in, or are you kind of more of a pitchability guy? What do you like from your staff?
Well, I think you can make a debate either way, which way to go. What I will say is I think we have more tools at our disposal in this day and age with taking a guy and improving his stuff. And that's not just me, like as the pitching coach. A lot of that, and Billy Anderson should get a ton of credit here, and strength coaches all over the country should get a lot of credit, because these kids are bigger than ever. There's different programs and protocols, whether it's just pure throwing program, whether it's weighted ball programs, whether it's just the fact that they mature and they lift different once they get to college. There's a lot of factors as to why the velocity is so high. Now, I do think we've gotten a lot of, physical, athletic motion guys in here who have been able to progress the right way, and you see their stuff go up. You look at, let's just use a Parker Coyne. Parker was a guy that I remember watching the first scrimmage he threw here back in January of 18. He was 86, 87, could spin the baseball a little bit, athletic delivery, 6'2", a little lean. Well, you look at him now, he's about 25 pounds heavier, can throw the ball over 95. Does that make you a great pitcher? No, but it certainly helps with the harder you throw it, the harder you can throw your off speed, and you give yourself a little bit more room for air. So, I think every pitching coach likes to have velocity, but you got to be able to command the baseball first and foremost. But if you have tons of stuff, and last year was condensed, but you look at our staff, I thought as the year went on, we were going to probably adjust more guys into the bullpen to lower maybe our overall walk totals. But at the same time, we were giving up 5 hits a game, and that wasn't going to go over the whole year. But I use that as just an example of, like, you could maybe be on one end of the spectrum in terms of maybe giving up a walk extra a game. But if you're giving up 2 hits less a game, it's okay. You know what I mean? But you can't be in maybe the middle on both. You can't have, 5 walks a game, and you can't be giving up 9 hits a game. That's just too many base runners to overcome.
John Whittle.
Yeah, the freshman class obviously came in with a lot of hype. Did they live up to your expectations? And how do you balance what a freshman does in the fall compared with, what he's going to be over the course of his career?
I think if you took just a track record of history, if I just went through my 14 years of coaching, falls are certainly not a barometer of what a guy is going to be. I know all you guys have been around long enough to know that some guys really can suck in a fall and they end up being great. They might end up being first round picks. A lot of them probably play in the big leagues. So I don't put a ton of stock in it. I think they lived up to the hype in the sense of they all showed us why they were highly thought of and why they're here. Were they consistent enough? No, but that's why you play a lot of innings in the fall. You work your things out. Like, I mean, let's just use, Mag Delgado as an example. His first 2 outings, it was like 3 innings. He's 95, 96. You're like, holy crap, this is the best pitcher of all time. Then he had a little bit of a rough spot. He had to learn to mix his breaking ball in more. So he had a couple outings, didn't go well. And then he finished on a high note in his, final outing where he kind of was able to land his breaking ball, threw his fastball in the zones that worked for him. And he ended up, having a good outing to round out his fall. So they're all going to be inconsistent. They're all going to do some things that make you scratch your head. But thankfully, all of them showed us enough, I thought, where you're like, dang, this guy could be really good. And he'll probably help us in some form or fashion in the spring, whether that's a starter, whether that's a high relief spot, whether that's a guy that comes in a 5-0 game in the 5th and wows you for a couple innings. I mean, I don't know what any of them will do, but I'm certainly glad we have them all here.
Colin.
Skylar, I guess outside of maybe Julian, who were some of the guys that have taken the biggest jumps, whether that's from the time you guys broke and marched or from the time you guys started back in the fall? Who have you seen kind of take that next step?
I think there's a lot of guys that did things well. I mean, Josiah Seitler is a guy, and I don't, I think the very same could be said on the offensive side. I'm not sure what Coach Kingston spoke of earlier, if that was even a question asked. But, I mean, on the pitching side, I mean, he was, I thought, dynamic. I mean, he's 6'5", as you all know. He's a great athlete. His velocity has ticked up. I mean, if you took his last 10 innings of the fall, it was 19 strikeouts, 1 walk. I am not, let me, in bold letters, I am not a false stats guy. I don't think that it's necessarily real, but I will say you can see trends. I thought Seitler, especially after we changed his usage the first couple of weeks, he was really good. I was really happy for John Gilreath. He pitched really well the last 3 weeks. From October 6th on, he really pitched well. His stuff went through the roof and was tremendous. Look, I know everyone thinks Thomas Farr is really good, but I thought Farr made tremendous jumps. His breaking balls over 5.5 miles an hour harder than it was last year. He commands his changeup, his fastball command. It's not all the way there yet, but it's a lot better. I mean, I thought he made tremendous gains. I'm looking over here at the sheet. Andrew Peters, first outing wasn't good. Last outing, he had a rough one, but I'm going to take the guy in those middle 5.5 weeks. I was really proud of what he did. Was he perfect? No, but I think he showed us and probably you guys from a media perspective why he had a lot of hype coming in. And, I think he's going to be a guy that is going to be asked to do a lot of things in the spring too. So, I mean, those are some that initially come to mind, but I mean, even a Cade Austin made tremendous gains as a freshman. I mean, he, it wasn't as if we thought he had like these like really low limitations. It's just maybe he didn't have as much fanfare as other guys, but he struck out a ton of dudes, had a ton of swing and misses. He started to sort of develop a breaking ball late. That's got to get better. He would sit on, if he was on this Zoom, he'd tell you the same thing. But, I thought he made a lot of gains in the fall, both maturity wise and then just from a pure pitching perspective.
John Whittle.
There's obviously a lot of quality arms in your bullpen right now. How do you go about managing that in the preseason to come January, February? Do you like kind of having guys in sort of a certain role going into the year, or would you like for that to sort itself out a little bit more during the season?
I do think some of it obviously sorts itself out in the season a little bit, just because you see the guys who turn it up when it's real, and then sometimes, unfortunately, guys don't. Now, what I will say is I thought this fall was really good in the sense that we had a ton of reps, so we could like try different things with guys. In terms of, I mentioned Seitler, we tried to lengthen out, and we were like, I don't know if we like how that looks. Let's shorten him up and see how that goes. And it was better. In the preseason, one of the things I think we'll definitely do is we will be a little more tunnel visioned on what we want to see guys do in terms of like preseason usage. we all know that stuff can change in the real games, but I do think, especially for young guys, learning how to prepare themselves to come into a game as a reliever, to go through the act of starting, if that's what they're doing. I think we're going to have to do a really good job mentally, like helping them learn that on a little bit of a curve, because I don't think they're going to have, time to figure it out during the season, because it's going to be so competitive for innings.
Colin.
Skylar, you guys signed, I think, 15 guys yesterday. I think 7 pitchers. Just what are your overall take on the guys you are bringing in and what they could potentially turn into?
Well, I think it's an exciting group as a whole, not just the pitchers. I think the position players, I think our pitchers got a ton of hype in the 20 class, and I think the position players, rightfully so, should be getting a lot of hype for the 21 group. But what I think is going to be unique about these 21s is, like, they're all guys that, like, are starting their upward trend. And the question was asked earlier about, like, do you like velocity? Do you like pitchability? I think there's some young guys in that group, especially the high school guys, that they have something that they can do that's pretty exciting pitching wise, but they're not throwing the baseball 95 yet. I mean, they're not tapped out. I don't think they're going to be as big of draft risk maybe, but you could also very easily see them, like, having a really big blow up in March and April. And, scouts are sitting there saying, I don't know, hey, calling Coach Couch and going, hey man, I just saw Sam Simpson yesterday. He's 92. He's already got the banger breaking ball. It's really good. Or Eli Jones, who, had a little arm issue. He got fixed in the spring, and suddenly Eli, which at the end of the fall, Eli was up to 92. Suddenly Eli, is like throwing the ball 92, 95. I think we could have a lot of guys like that, because what people do forget from time to time is, I know Magdiel Cotto, you see him throwing 96 now. The day he committed to us, I remember being at the game the day before, and he was throwing the ball 83 to 86, and he touched 87. And you're like, wow, okay, like, he's lefty, he's big, he's going to develop. So Will Sanders, all of them did that same thing. I think these guys maybe are a couple months behind in terms of the timing of it, but let's not forget they had to deal with Corona like all of us. And I think it's hard for high school kids right now to have a routine. They already can be at times a little, like, clueless to routines. You factor in Corona, it is not easy for them to do. And so our job, and my job as a pitching coach, is to help them learn that as quick as possible. Heck, one of the things in our, pitchers group text last night we were discussing was routine development and being really sharp with it. I know it seems like a silly thing to worry about in November, but I'd rather them learn it now, not when we get back here in January, when we should be learning to compete properly.